some toys in here.
Hey, what's up everyone today? It's the Man-Child. Alright, so today for review, I'm finally going to go over my Masters Universe, Masterverse, new Eternia, Man-at-Arms. Yeah, right, Man-at-Arms is always a very iconic and a figure, a fan favorite anyway. I saw part of the Wave 11 series. I got those a while back, almost a month ago. I reviewed a couple of them, not all of them, trying to just get the stuff as I can. And Man-at-Arms is next on the list. Yeah, Man-at-Arms is always a favorite of mine as a kid, going back to the vintage, figures, especially the early series, He-Man, Beastman, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms. And I never get tired of seeing another Man-at-Arms in a series, especially the Masterverse, or even back to the classics. They did a couple different variations. And that's what they're going for with this new Eternia style. So if you're not familiar, you can see the Wave 11 packaging, and I'm assuming the newer packaging for the Masterverse going forward has all new. It's just kind of it still has a window. It's not as big as the original packaging, but you can still see the figure. Some really cool art now. So down over here, let's see, we got some Palace Guards fighting. Here's our Man-at-Arms, of course. His look seems to be inspired by the Lord of Power design, I want to say. Now, I do have the Lord of Power Origins Man-at-Arms. They never made one of the classics, so later on I'll bring them in and compare, especially in the face and helmet, stuff like that. And now taking a quick look at the back of the box, so we just have a picture image of the Man-at-Arms figure himself, so you kind of see everything. The armor, the new loincloth, the boots, the mace. Going over this side, so it looks like his mace now actually has a ball and chain that comes out of the top. So that round traditional piece that type of mace that Man-at-Arms always had, once again going back to the vintage figure, and of course seemed to always carry to all our new Man-at-Arms figures, whether it was a classics or now Masterverse. They added something a little different with this, with that ball and chain. That's cool. Looks like he also comes with, I want to say, another spare head and a different helmet as well. So it also looks like the helmets are removable and you get 2 additional heads. And here's a close-up of the new Man-at-Arms bio. You want to pause and read that. And then dropping down, here's a look at all 4 figures as part of Wave 11 series. And here's a little more cool art on the right-hand side of the box, looking in from the window of Man-at-Arms' traditional vintage-inspired head, and then that, I want to call it the Lord of Power head, or mustache head, and the Lord of Power helmet on. And taking a look at the other side of the box, check out these Easter eggs. So you got the battle ram firing that battle ram projectile out of the top there. It's pretty cool. And you also have the Wind Raider. And I do have the Classics battle ram loose, so somewhere later on in the review, I'll try this Masterverse Man-at-Arms on that battle ram. Okay, so I got Man-at-Arms and all those accessories at a package. Here's a quick look at what to expect, what's in that box. And bringing in Man-at-Arms for a closer look with the head sculpt that comes on in the box with the mustache face. Yeah, excellent detail. The painting, just the sculpting and painting in the mustache, the eyebrows, the facial expression. It's awesome. I really like the way it came out. As far as the articulation now, so we can go all the way left to right, and go down about that far into the armored and back. Now, taking a closer look at this helmet, it's like Lord of Power concept helmet, and that is removable. So let's see how easy that comes off. Does it snap? Okay, so you gotta really get your fingers in there. There we go, and that's the helmet off the head. And now here's another look with the helmet off the head. So he has some type of hood on that helps hold the helmet. Even has some electronic enhanced ear muffs on or something like that on both sides. Awesome sculpting. All right, see all around. There's the back. And here's a closer look with that helmet off the head. Cool sculpting. Just a different design than the traditional helmet. Okay, it's soft, but it's not overly soft. It's painted in it's a blue metallic color, as you can see. Now, for a second, I'm going to bring in the Origins Lord of Power Man-at-Arms. So it reminds me a little bit of that concept, going back to that. You can see, of course, the Origins did something different. This is cut, has just different grooves in it, different color, but for the most part, it's where I'm kind of seeing where the inspiration came from. But of course, we're going into new Eternia, so I might have changed it up a bit. So leaving that helmet off for the moment, moving down to the armored, very traditional, Man-at-Arms armored. Again, it's very reminiscent to that Lord of Power design with the fur up top over the armor. So going back to the Origins one, you can see just, now of course sculpting is a little different, but that's what it reminds me of, going back to that concept. Just really cool detail. He has that tank there, right? The ray shield face. Here's the front. You go. It even has, okay, cool, section on the back to put the mace on. We'll do that in a little bit. And look at that. They even have a little painting, a symbol back there, going back to Grayskull or Eternia or something like that. So to remove this armor, there's 2 straps here and they pop off like this. And then it looks like the whole piece is going to flip right off. And now here's a closer look at that armor once again off the body. Really, really flexible. I like the way this snaps into these pins. It works well, where some of the other armors, like the Origins, you're always fighting, trying to break the buckles, or, certain ones pop off too easy. These work really nice. And bringing Man-at-Arms back, and again with the armored off, here's just a closer look at the buck. Just seems like a Viking He-Man, New Eternia style buck, right? So as far as the articulation, all the same stuff probably seen before. You can spin up at the ab there, right, and go forward all the way down about that far and back, spin at the waist. As far as the arms, we can go up, down, go, this one's stuck forward, back, all the way out. Has a bicep swivel. Can, this arm's really tight, okay. Can bend all the way up the face like this. He had Man-at-Arms on the, so right now we're just focusing on the right arm, because this is the armored. Has a wrist bracer here, and that's cool too. So that one comes off. You can see it spins all around. And then he comes with a semi-weapon gripping hand on this side that can spin. And I don't know if the hinge joint does go up and down. I think this one goes up and down, okay. And then it should pop right out like this. And here's a closer look at that hand off the arm. So it's those larger style pegs, so it's not going to fit the Origins without modification. And you can see where how that hinge goes up and down. And there's the bracer off the arm. Okay, so I put the hand bracer back on the right side, moving on to the left arm. So yeah, he has a big traditional shoulder and forearm armor that Man-at-Arms always did on the left side. Now he doesn't come with both like the Palace Guards would. I always imagined he did that because he had one was like a more of a defensive side, and the other one was a side to be able to be quicker with weapons and stuff without having bulky armored on. But yeah, really cool detail, pretty soft. I love the way the swords and painted sculpt in there like that. So this armor is one. Okay, so it's one piece down to, looks like it's one. There are 2 different pieces. It looks like, and it snaps to the forearm armored. Right, so leaving this on as far as the articulation, go all the way out, down, forward, back. Just like the other arm, you can bend up about that far, and it gets hindered by it. Looks like in the elbow, straighten all the way out, and then he also comes with a hand on this side, same thing, can spin. Right, just semi-weapon gripping hand, and this one, okay, so the hinge joint goes in and out. Fingers are pretty soft. And to remove this armored, so it looks like it's, I don't know, maybe you could just slide right off, straighten the arm. It looks like it's slide right down the arm. So I removed the hand, and yeah, look at that. The armor slides right off. I like that better than like the classics or other armors where they break with the little buckles. It's just, sometimes they're aggravating to put on, but that's pretty cool. And all right, so it is pegged in there. It looks like if you want to take this apart, you can. I'm going to leave it together. But check that out. It hinges like that on that little peg. Yeah, really cool design. And now here's an overall look with all the armored off, and we already looked at the articulation and muscle aesthetics. The articulation works pretty much all the same with the chest armored on, and of course this side's a little different in the elbow from what I showed. So moving down, we know he spins at the waist. He has the new Eternia, the Viking style He-Man belt on, right? It's sculpted or painted in blue to match the bracers, and the helmet I took off has like a red jewel or something in the middle. It's painted. As far as the loin guard now, he has like a Roman gladiator kilt loin guard, I want to call it. These pieces normally should be individual, but they're all sculpted together. It's pretty flexible, right, front and back. But cool sculpt detail. It's different. I like that for this Man-at-Arms. And if you wanted to, and you knew how, there is a way to cut or pull loin guards, original ones off the other Masterverse, and put it on his figure. There's a way to do that. Anyway, as far as your leg articulation, so we can go all the way out with a split. All right, kick forward, back, bend at the knee, as the thigh cut, these little thigh cuts here, other legs all the same. Now, the ankle bracer or guard on the left side is actually the boot. I thought it was a piece of armor that went over the boot, so I looked at it first. And you can see, yeah, he has his own style boots. This one can spin. But yeah, check that out. It just spins, and the only way you can take this off, you'd have to heat this and pull it off. There should be large pegs. And if you do that, you'd probably want to change out to some like He-Man boots or something different. Take this boot off too. But yeah, it's pretty much the boot. And so we already looked at this boot. And as far as the sort of feet, are the same on both sides. And they can go up, as far as the articulation, go up, down, rock side to side. And the other foot on this boot's all the same. So moving on to Man-at-Arms accessories. So here's more of that traditional vintage-inspired helmet that he's known for. All right, you can see just the overall sculpt. Paint's identical to the other one. Now I'm going to bring in again, I'm going to call it the Lord Power inspired helmet. You see the difference in design between the two. Just the front. Just look from the side. And then this is the back. And now bringing Man-at-Arms back in for a minute and taking that traditional helmet, put it over the mustache head that he comes with in the box. Let's take a look at that. So it's going to push and snaps down, locks. It's kind of tight, but you got to move it around. All right, it's going to look something like that. And now there's a closer look with that helmet adjusted on the original head with the mustache face. So the next accessory is that alternative head without the mustache. Take a closer look at that. Yeah, once again, good head sculpt. Has the same exact hood and earmuffs that the mustache head did. Now I'm going to bring in that head that I just took off the body. So there's a side-by-side comparison of those two. Side the mustache, it looked very identical, but this face, it looked a little bit, I see some differences. This could be a factory thing, how it's painted, sculpted. They look different, but yet similar side the mustache. So bringing Man-at-Arms body back in again, I'm going to put that alternative head on the ball peg. And now here's a look at that alternative head without the mustache and no helmets on the body. Take a look at that. And the articulation is really, head like fitting on really tight. It's not working too well. Got to mess with it, but you can spin left to right, go down about that far and back. But see, it's like sitting off the ball peg. I might have to mess around with it more. And now with that head on, I'm going to put the, call it the Lord of Power helmet on. And here's a quick look at that setup on that face. And now I'll take that helmet off and put the more traditional helmet on the face without the mustache. And here's a look at that setup. I like that setup the best for some reason. The helmet, the face without the mustache on this Man-at-Arms body. And here's a little closer look, just the details. We already went over the face, just what the helmet looks like. And moving on to his other accessories. So he comes with a complete pair of closed punching fists for the left and right side. And they have the hinge joints that move in and out. And now here's a look at his iconic mace weapon. Yeah, really cool sculpting. Pretty heavy. It's made in like a really sturdy plastic. It's not too gummy. Now, what's interesting with this is the top of the mace part is on a like a peg. It snaps off. And here's that piece off the lower end. And now here's a look at the alternative mace head, right, with the ball and chain. So the chain just a solid sculpted plastic piece. It's flexible, but it's not an actual piece of chain. It's got the solid ball up top. It yeah, so it doesn't retract in. I thought maybe it did. But that's just how it's attached. And then of course you can see it's gonna snap on to the lower mace piece. And now there's a look at that. And now here's a look what Man-at-Arms set up in a battle pose with his iconic mace in hand without the ball and chain. I just left the, want to call it the vintage inspired head and helmet on. Check that out. Feels very yeah, traditional. Now I just put the other head on with the mustache and that, call it the Lord of Power helmet, alternative helmet, with the mace with the ball and chain hanging out in a kind of a battle pose. And now I just put the vintage inspired helmet back on that mustache face, left the mace with the ball and chain hanging out. Kind of has more of a filmation but yet vintage vibe to it. And then once again looking at the back of the armor with that holder for his mace, so it would just clip in like this if you want to hold it. Now of course, it makes sense not to have the ball and chain piece hanging out. I mean, you can do that if you want. So moving on to some comparisons and mixing and matching parts. Now there's all kinds of Man-at-Arms out, everything from Classics to Origins to a couple different Masterverse. So I'll just try to keep it limited. You know, once again, you can make a whole video on parts, customizing, stuff like that. But obviously this is the first release Man-at-Arms that was represented in the Revelation show. Of course, our new Eternia Man-at-Arms. So you can really see the difference. Yeah, I like the head sculpt and size better on this. Both heads and helmets, really, where this Man-at-Arms, they just made, with a lot of early Revelation figures, seemed like they tried to go for that bigger body and a small head, helmets, or stuff like that. They did it with He-Man. Kind of remind me of the 2000X series, just over-exaggerated body and smaller heads, long arms, things like that, long loincloth. But for the most part, the Bucks look exactly the same from what I can see under the armor. Now, his colors are more of a darker olive drab, or his is a brighter pine green or something like that. So they are different. Obviously, the armor, you can see the chest, the arms, completely different. Now, we can switch armors and stuff like that around. It doesn't make sense to me. And of course, his leg armor does come off, where this one doesn't. But yeah, that's all you're really gaining. The only other thing I do want to try with these two is just the head swap. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so here's a look with the new Eternia mustache head with that vintage-inspired helmet on the first release Revelation body with the armor and everything set up, and that color suit, obviously. And of course, he has a different loincloth and belt from the new Eternia one. Now, here's the same Revelation body, armored, the whole deal, and I just drew the Lord of Power helmet on the mustache face or head, and I put his mace with the ball and chain hand. So you want to take a look at that setup. And now here's a look with the same setup. I just drew the head without the mustache on, no helmet on that body. So it has the hood. Obviously, the colors are going to match this new Eternia style, but it still works for this. So you want to use that head on that body with no helmet, and that mace. What it'll look like. And now here's a vintage-inspired helmet on that head on the first release Revelation body. And now here's a look at that newer helmet, or Lord of Power helmet. Once again, I'm going to call it on the face without the mustache on the first release Revelation body. And now going back to the new Eternia body. Of course, here's that first release Revelation Man-at-Arms head with the mustache on that particular body. And of course, his mace in hand. So if you didn't want to switch parts around, going back just to different colors, this loincloth, the boots, the green hands, and that whole setup, you just want to change the head over. That's what it looked like on his body. And bringing both figures back in once again. Here's the first release Revelation Man-at-Arms, right, with our new Eternia. Switched the right heads back out on both their bodies. I did want to take the armored off both of these just to confirm that there's nothing different in the bucks that I can see. It's the same exact buck. Again, once side the colors of the suit and belts and all that stuff. So for a little bonus, once again, mixing some parts up, going back to the original Revelation body and the Man-at-Arms head. We could change heads out. And again, do a whole video on it. I just want to throw the new Eternia armored on this body. Leave this on, the leg armored on, all that stuff. Yeah, it could work. You could, it's, once again, the bucks are the same, but you can mix armors and colors up, and it could work for these figures. And now here's a quick look with the Revelation armored on the new Eternia body. With that mustache head, the helmet, of course, the left is armored on, has this new belt. And another important point between the two different Man-at-Arms from the first Revelation to Eternia is, yeah, the pegs are different if you want to change out the hands, which is, yeah, it can make the figure look even different, but of course, these have the larger style, and these are the Origins pegs. So, moving on, now here's a comparison against the Master Universe Classics Man-at-Arm variant that came with the Battle Ram, and of course, against our new Masterverse Man-at-Arms. So, now he didn't come with a helmeted head. I do have that one in cards somewhere. At this point, I'm just going to focus on the overall height between the two. The Man-at-Arms armor as far as switching parts, because the regular Man-at-Arms with the helmet came with this armored. And then he did come with that one ankle guard like this Man-at-Arms, but it did come off. He comes with like the Palace Guard setup. He has dual armor and shoulder pieces on both sides. But aside that, let's see what parts we can mix and match with these two. Alright, and here's a look at the Masterverse Man-at-Arms armor on the Classics body, so it does fit. I did use a blow dryer and heat one of these sections, this one here, just to help snap it on, so, their buck is a lot wider. Now, as far as that arm guard, this can work too. Okay, you would just slide it up over here, just like it would on a Masterverse, but the problem is the Classics hands are difficult to take off. You can heat these. I've snapped a few of these pegs, so honestly, I'm not going to mess with it. The other thing you could do too is you can make a cut in here, open this up if you wanted to, or try to remove the hand and hope you don't break it. You can push it all the way through, move this cut over the wrist, and then that will go all the way up to the shoulder. So it definitely will work if you want to do little modifications. I'm not going to mess with it, but it does work, and the armor works as well. That's the important part. So once again, take a look at the Classics body with that armored on, the Masterverse armored on. Going back to these Masterverse heads, they can sit on top of the ball peg, but they are loose. Okay, you put a little piece of tape or something, and they can work for the most part. So I'll just, and that color hood don't match the skin tone. But if you want to use the head and reinforce it somehow and put the helmet on, once you set it, it would kind of look something like that on the Classics body. And now I just drew on that alternative face without the mustache and the Lord of Power helmet on the Classics body. And that one fits a little better. Something a little messed up my pegs. Once again, you can reinforce it, put a piece of tape or something. But once you do it, it looks, these heads do look good on the Classics body. And once you work them out, I think they'll articulate well too. So, yeah, it looks pretty cool. And moving back over to the Masterverse Man-at-Arms body. So, of course, we have that body. I got the mustache head with the vintage-inspired helmet on. And the Classics armor does fit. I had to heat up the back a little bit to snap this piece on. So there's basically 4 pegs on this. It's kind of a weird setup, but it doesn't look bad. The arm pieces fit as well. You had to take the hands off. Now these are kind of sloppy. That's the thing I didn't like with the Classics. Where this is a better piece, how it's kind of all one thing, how it holds it on. Again, you could put this on, you want to take the handle off the Classics. I'm not going to mess with that now. But if you mess with these around, you push these pieces like this, it holds the shoulder, it kind of holds it all together, you know, and keep the arms up. And the head articulation is a little tight because because the Classics armor is a little bit smaller. Now here's the same setup, but I put the Classics club in the right hand. I put that Lord of Power, the alternative helmet, on the mustache face, with all the armor on. Now I just drew the face on without the mustache, vintage-inspired helmet, put the Masterverse club in the left hand. That's the Classics laser pistol. It came as part of the set. So you want to check that out. Works really well on the Masterverse, once again. And now it's the Lord of Power helmet on that face without the mustache on the whole setup. I took the pistol out of hand. And now here's a look with that Man-at-Arms alternative head without the helmet. Came with the Classics on the Masterverse body with all the Classics armored and the whole setup. So we're just basically converting it back to a Classics again, but with the Masterverse body. And then, of course, we have this piece, which we can't change out. But for most part, the head works. It can articulate. It's a little tight. And now, here's a look with the Masterverse Man-at-Arms on the Classics Battle Ram. So, yeah, of course, I put all his armored and pieces back on. I just put the head on without the mustache and a vintage-inspired helmet because it makes me feel like the Man-at-Arms we had as kids without the mustache face. And, of course, the vintage line had the Battle Ram, and the Classics did come out with one. Looks awesome, but he fits really well on it, and yeah, that looks cool. And lastly, moving on to some Origins against the Masterverse. I already brought in the Lord of Power Man-at-Arms against the Masterverse one. Again, I kind of feel like there's some inspiration from this figure when the other helmet and the fur on the armored. Going back to this one, and the Classics kind of did something similar as I just showed with that armored. This is the vintage-inspired one, or the first Man-at-Arms to come out. He has the head without the mustache, came in that Palace Guards pack. I actually put some white in the eyes of mine. You know, instead of having those big black doll eyes. Looks better with a little paint. But what I want to do is, so I'm not going to focus on this Man-at-Arm so much as far as part swapping. Because many people don't have this one, unless you have that 5-pack. But a lot of people probably do have this one. So let's see what parts from the Masterverse Man-at-Arms and the heads go on this Origins body. So here's a look with that Masterverse Man-at-Arms armored on the Origins body. Does fit well. Looks pretty cool. And I can even put that arm piece on. You got to kind of mess with a little bit. It gets stuck at the bicep. So you'd have to heat and stretch this. I had to force this on to snap the hand on because you have to take it off. I can't get... Well, it does articulate somewhat. Again, it does work. You mess around with it. Can't really do much with the ankle bracer. I mean, this can come off. But once again, the one on this one, it's his own boot. And now here's a look with that mustache head with the vintage-inspired helmet on the Origins body with all the armor set on. Yeah, that looks really cool. That's what's fun with Origins, too, with certain Masterverse figures, because a lot of the parts and heads fit. Really bumps up the Origins body, just with the different heads and armor and stuff, when they do work. Now I just drew that Lord of Power helmet on that face with the mustache. Same setup as well on the Origins body. And now here's a look with the head with no mustache, vintage-inspired helmet. So now he's looking more like that vintage Man-at-Arms we had as a kid. And I also used the Masterverse club in the hand, which the Origins one does hold. Now the same exact setup, once again, is for that Lord of Power, the new Eternia helmet on the head with no mustache on the Origins body. And then for fun and my own curiosity, I just put the Origins armor all back on. I want to throw that head on without the mustache and that vintage-inspired helmet on the Origins body. Just going back, once again, to that vintage-inspired figure we all had as kids. I mean, of course, we got this head, but that head, because of how realistic it looks, and the helmet on his body just, yeah, really tones this Origins figure up. Okay, so I think overall this Man-at-Arms is pretty cool, you know. If you didn't get this Revelation Man-at-Arms, you don't have the Classics. This one definitely feels very retro, vintage-inspired, I want to call it, but yet has some differences, you know, like this Roman loincloth kind of thing, the new Eternia belt. I like this new mace with the ball and chain that you can detach it and put the vintage-inspired piece on like I showed. The heads and the removable helmets alone are cool. Not only do you get the vintage-inspired one, of course, with the head without the mustache, but the head with the mustache with the Lord of Power helmet, as I call it. And you can switch them around. That in itself is cool. I wish this piece was removable instead of it's part of the boot, but it is what it is. You can always take it off and change out the boots on this Man-at-Arms if you haven't, and use that removable piece. And same thing with the armor and stuff like that. You know, of course, I did a lot of mixing and mashing. Once again, you can make a whole video of, yeah, an hour long of Man-at-Arms parts and this and that, really go into crazy custom details. I went into enough time with it, just what I show what you can do. But otherwise, if you didn't get any of these, I think these are really cool. He looks great in the new Eternia line. I like how he came out. So I appreciate everybody watching, And until next time, take care.